You're watching News 24 Live. Welcome to another episode of our Rugby World Cup show. Today we are previewing the quarterfinals, of course, starting with the Springboks versus Wales. Wales have just announced their team for Saturday's first quarterfinal. Rob, no surprises really. Welcome. Your partner Garen, of course, as we mentioned earlier in the week, has now taken the baton. He's going to cover the playoffs. So, we're going to make use of you while you're here. And the Wales team, any surprises? No?
No, I think it's, considering all the injuries that they've had, I mean, that's been much publicised in the last few weeks, how more and more they've been eroded by injuries. That obviously can make a team quite dangerous because that sort of almost galvanises them, that what's left, they sort of, fight a particularly sort of tough battle to overcome that sort of setback. But they've still got the core of their sort of first teamers, I would say. The Boks have run into, on plenty of occasions before, people like Sam Warburton, Alan Wynne-Jones, Jamie Roberts, of course, at number 12, the battering ram centre. They know guys like Gareth Anscombe, the fullback from Super Rugby days in New Zealand. The Boks are well versed in what they're going to be facing. The only thing that is interesting is that the Welsh have gone with this young Tyler Morgan, the 20-year-old, at 13, which is a little bit of a mystery factor to the Boks, because there was talk that James Hook, who of course offers utility value, might well have fitted in there as a real seasoned, versatile player to have filled the hole there, with George North moving back to the wing. But they've gone with a 20-year-old. Interesting to see how he goes, given that the South African centres are also pretty rookie.
How many caps has he had for Wales?
I think he's had two. I think he's had two caps, and both of them earlier this year, I think. So so he doesn't offer any experience at all. This will be, I'm pretty certain, his biggest match, as it's a World Cup quarterfinal.
Yeah.
So he's going to be put to a big test, and maybe a little bit of relief for someone like Jesse Creel, because it almost makes him look pretty experienced at number 13, opposite him. And of course, having mentioned Jamie Roberts, Heineke Meyer has mentioned that the Welsh use him as a big source of sort of go-forward power. And Damien Delende
Which the Boks, I think, can now counter with a guy like Delende, yeah.
Absolutely, and Handré Pollard not far away, because 10 and 12 often are virtually duplicating channels, sort of infield channels in the backline, if you like, from a defensive point of view. And I'm pretty confident about the ability of both Delende and Pollard, who I think has defended very well at this World Cup, to do enough of a policing duty on someone like Jamie Roberts to sort of keep him at bay. And I also think that the Springbok pack may well have the measure at the set piece and in mauling play. So in general, over the Welsh eight, I must say I'm feeling very chipper about the game. I'll be mightily disappointed if the Boks do botch it, because I really struggle to think how that Bok starting 15 can be bettered. You sort of think, it's not as though we're fielding some shock left field selections and that afterwards we may come to rue that. We've got very much what looks like our first team on duty, and frankly they must deliver.
Rob, where do you see the game being won or lost? You just briefly touched on the forward pack. Another area I wanted to look at was the wingers. They've got two big fast finishers in George North and Alex Cuthbert, but of course the Boks now have JP Peterson back. Brian Banner no doubt will be going for his that Rugby World Cup record. So yeah,
as you mentioned, the wings is an interesting tussle. South Africa have a bit of a history of being quite stoic and defiant against big wings. We think back to Jonah Lomu, 1995 World Cup final, all the hype about this giant on the wing, and South Africa went out of their way to not give him any leeway at all. And generally, I think we've managed to keep George North in reasonably good check over the years. He's of course fluctuated between midfield and wing in the last few seasons, which may be to his detriment. I'm not sure, but he's obviously going to be a handful. But as you say, JP Peterson is no shrinking violet physically as well, and although he's just come back from a reasonably minor injury, we know that in the early parts of the World Cup he was looking pretty terrific. He seems to have a knack of playing well at World Cups. If you think back to 2007, etc. And Habana, the record books looming for him in many illustrious ways, and Habana just keeps on visiting the try line. So he'll certainly be hoping that he can squeeze over the line a couple of times in this game. I'm not sure there will be too many tries. I think it could be typical sort of quarterfinal, no holds barred, knockout rugby.
And
and probably a lot of it contested in sort of midfield areas. I do think that the Springboks are capable, as I say, through the forward pack, of getting enough traction to be within good kicking range for possible penalties. We know that Wayne Barnes is in charge as the referee. That's not a bad development from a South African point of view, and I don't think the Welsh have too much of a beef about that either, from what I've been reading. So that should, at least things should equate quite nicely there. It's pleasing from a South African point of view. We don't have a French referee because we really struggle with our interpretation of French referees, various of them, for whatever reasons. But Wayne Barnes has usually been a reasonably good sort of omen, if you like, for South Africa when he's got the whistle. So that shouldn't be too much of a factor. Looks like it'll be dry. I read talk of a little bit of rain, perhaps in the build-up, but very light stuff, and I don't think the field is going to be too heavy or sort of cut up or anything. So we should get a reasonable game of rugby, and then who knows? It may come down to goal kicking. Mr. Bigger with his twitchy style, which of course, if he does end up having a field day, it's going to spark lots of young South Africans, barefooted kids in their backyards, to be sort of doing a twitchy build up to their place kicks. But hopefully it doesn't come to that, and hopefully all their
penalties for Wales are almost a given 3 points. I mean, he's pretty accurate. Do you foresee possibly, if Pollard has a bad kicking display, they'll haul on Pat Lambie?
That is a possibility, I suppose. But generally speaking, I think Andre Pollard's been striking the ball pretty well. Certainly the game I remember from having been there against Scotland at St James's Park, I thought he kicked very well off the tee there. So no special problems there, and he's got pretty decent range on his kicks as well, Pollard. He can bang them over for a long distance. You almost wish there was somebody like Frans Steyn lurking somewher as a possible backup who could put over a freak one from 60 yards out, which is a little bit just beyond Pollard's capability. But so it may well come down to kicks. We saw from that Australia-Wales game that things were very tight, and not a whole heap of activity in the try column, and that may well be the case again. But if the Springboks can get a serious forward platform, which I suspect is possible, then maybe all going well in the try column, it'll be mostly South Africans, going over the line if there are to be a couple of tries in the match. And I'm feeling pretty confident. I think South Africa could just take this one by a margin of 5 points or more, and that it may not be that absolute sort of 1 point or 2 point kind of nail biter.